Hello and welcome everybody. This is Team J presenting Game of Life, an entrepreneurship simulator. Our group members presenting today will be myself, Amilcar Gomez, Andrew DeVore, Christopher Diaz, and Seferino Fernandez. Just a little bit of background information on our project is an entrepreneurship simulation based off the board game Life. This game will give you an opportunity to be an entrepreneur where you'll have to create, market, and sell a product. And the end goal of the game is to make sure you don't end up bankrupt by the end of the simulation. Next, we will talk about our project process and more specifically our iterations. So far, we've only completed one iteration, and that being iteration 1. From that, we were able to see many of the details that were missing when we first got our project prompt, things that we hadn't learned yet. We also learned that this won't be a small program. Actually creating it would take a lot of time, a lot of research, and a lot of resources. And depending on how detailed and complex the simulation is going to be, the final design will be very intricate.
We believe our group followed the user-centered design process mainly by having the iterative approach and keeping this diagram in mind. We started off by understanding the context of use through creating personas. Then based off those personas, we developed our user requirements. Those are both technical and non-technical. Then keeping in mind our personas and our requirements, we designed our prototype. Then once we finalized our prototype, we went through evaluating and testing and obtaining feedback from different types of users. And we're going to continue this process and iterating until we finally meet our requirements and the user's requirements. One of the items that we used to ensure that we're following the UCD process was a tool called See Now Do. What this does is a way to keep track of all the different tasks that we had going on. For example, we had prototype 1, so the design process. You have this task created, and then it started off in not starting. Somebody will grab it, they'll work on that task, and then once it's completed, they'll put in review, and then that gave us the opportunity to review it as a team, discuss any changes we want to make, and we can move it back to in progress. Once we're done, we can shift it over to complete, and then now we know it's completed, and then we can move on to testing the prototype. So this is one of the examples that we use to ensure that we're following the UCD process.
With our prototype, we wanted to get the feel of the game across more than anything. We wanted to emphasize what it's really like to be an entrepreneur. As you can see, our title screen is quite simple, though we feel that's the best way to go with it. A few options with nice big buttons that all serve a different purpose. This is our quick start menu, essentially a way for the player to choose a specific aspect of the simulation. We feel that this will be ideal for newer users, or users who wish to skip ahead in the entrepreneurial experience. It also breaks down the steps that we will implement in our simulation, though these are certainly liable to change. By allowing this option for the players, they learn the more minute details of specific areas of the simulation. Our hope is that this will help the players learn more about becoming an entrepreneur. This is where the new simulations will start. Essentially, this will be the player's hub, a place for them to access all parts of the game world. They will have access to their board, where they can plan the next steps for their product, their workstation, where they can put that planning to work, and the door to the outside world, where they can meet with potential consumers or even investors. We feel that this simple start will draw the player into the game, making him more invested in his own actions. Each part of this area represents an aspect of being an entrepreneur, and demonstrating that these aspects can be done on such a small scale will hopefully encourage the players to get started on their own projects. Meeting with potential investors and wooing them over is an essential aspect to the entrepreneurial experience. This prototype shows an example of how we can represent this situation to the player. The player will have access to information on the potential investors beforehand and must make his preparations accordingly. This screen here would be in the middle of the meeting, where the user must decide which topics to focus on. We want to give the player a sense of intimidation while still letting them know they are on equal playing field. The use of perspective to make the table seem gigantic while still keeping the menus in equal size will hopefully communicate the gravity of the situation. Of course, this is just an example of what could be, though we've gotten some positive feedback on it.
One of the most helpful techniques we did was we started brainstorming. We were able to hash out most of the details on how our project and design will look like. We combined all of our ideas together and got a common visualization, and we were able to ask and answer any questions one of us had about the project. Once we got on the same page, we were able to figure out how our simulation will look like and what it will do. We want the user to experience creating a product, marketing your product, and getting money from your customers and sponsors. There's going to be many random events and choices which you are going to have to face. We are hoping this simulation will be a great learning experience for anyone who plays it. Brainstorming ended up being the foundation of our first iteration, and it helped us discover our personas and create our initial prototype. A technique we use for our project is personas. Personas is a great way to represent who your main consumers will be. Personas also help narrow down your market so you can only focus on making them happy. Our personas ended up being student teenagers and young adults due to the fact our simulation is a learning experience mixed with a game. Our first persona is Bobby Boucher, an undergraduate student in business school. He grew up with many of his family members owning a business, and he wants to follow in their footsteps. Some of Bobby's goals is to earn a business degree and start a successful business and have a steady source of income that will gradually grow along with his business. Our second persona is John Robertson, a computer science student that attends Stanford. John is a driven, proactive student that is eager to learn. He wants to learn entrepreneur skills to help him market some of the apps he's been working on. Our simulation will help people like Bobby and John learn and sharpen their entrepreneur skills that they need. We're hoping our personas have represented the majority of people who will be using our product.
One major risk to our project success would be setting unrealistic requirements. This can cause more complicated designs and potentially cause us to miss deadlines. We plan to avoid this by carefully managing our user requirements through each iteration to make sure we are setting realistic requirements. Currently, we are on track with the outline schedule. We've completed the first iteration and have begun working on the second. And now, as a team, we did want to stay ahead and be done with iteration 2, but due to poor communication and other factors, it just prevented that from happening. But we are still on the suggested schedule. By our next iteration, we expect to have a much higher fidelity model in place to obtain feedback electronically and through observation. This will be done with an interactive pencil prototype. Also, some major housekeeping will also be established in the form of task dispersal between team members and also improved communication.